Hello and welcome to Live Dreams. Thank you for joining us tonight. Super excited, as always, every Tuesday to bring you the best of live dream interpretation. I'm going to have a guest again tonight, and that will be the General, our own Neil Tully. Hi, Neil.
John, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a great night to be here. Thanks for inviting me back. Look forward to tonight. Pretty excited about this too. Something different than War Dreams, so it'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what transpires tonight. So, well, let's pray and get started, shall we?
Amen.
Father God, we thank you for this time, for the opportunity to hear from you, to hear your voice in visions and dreams in the seer realm, Lord God. We ask for more, Father. Paul said, eagerly desire the greater gifts, especially the gifts of prophecy. And we know that prophecy and word of knowledge, word of wisdom, dreams, visions, they're all part of the prophetic seer realm. And we ask for all of it, God, that you would show us acutely how to do the Joseph method, how to hear a dream and immediately know what the key symbols are, and to know what the key symbols mean, how to put together a summary and then actionable intelligence for every person that joins us today. And God, everybody that hears this now as we're live or when we air it or broadcast it later, God, that you would open up their dream life as never before, that they would begin to have dreams and visions, that they would hear from you, that it would be said of us that we are among those who can stand in the counsel of the Lord to both see and hear your word. Bless our time tonight. We dedicate it to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, we have a couple of people that we have tried to get on a couple of times before, and because of scheduling, they didn't get on. So let me hit those first. Let's see if we can get a hold of Katie.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I
Hey,
have
Katie.
a helper here. Hi, Neil. I was on actually a couple weeks ago during your Dreams of War.
Oh,
I
nice.
remember you.
Thank you for having me back again.
Absolutely.
Were you the Katie? Were you the one that had the dream about the truck and the soldiers who were two-dimensional?
It was, I'm so sorry. I have my 1-year-old. I'm giving him a sucker so I can do this. I had a dream about the women wearing fuchsia and yellow. And
Oh, that's right. In the walled city.
Yes, in the walled city. Yep.
That was a fascinating dream. Still working on that one.
So, well, the dream, this dream I had was in the beginning of January, and I was in like a supermarket or like a cafeteria of sorts, and I was going to the checkout line with my cart, and I had a huge bowl in it, like a BULL, and so like the animal. So I was checking out at the cash register, and as I was about to like have the transaction, the floor fell through completely into the basement of this like cafeteria or like food court type building, and I crashed into the basement with this bowl, and there's all this debris and concrete rubble and everything everywhere. And there was like another underground kind of like another layer of this cafeteria or market or whatever. And to the left of me was like a plaster mold of how do I say this? Like to make another bowl, like if you were to, pour some kind of concrete in it or something, you would get an exact replica of this bowl. The mold was kind of shaped so that like if you poured the concrete or whatever in, the new bowl come out upside down, like legs first. And so as I was kind of like collecting myself, figuring out what was going on, the bull that I was about to buy turned to charge at me. And I just like rebuked it. I was just like, oh no, you don't. And it kind of like cowered back. And then the next part of the dream was I was just suddenly walking out of this building in a parking lot and in like the sunlight, like a very sunny day. And that was the gist of the dream.
Mommy.
I heard you were walking out into the parking lot, and then I didn't hear after that.
Oh yeah, it was just like a sunny day. It was like a blacktop parking lot and a sunny day, and kind of there's just open field kind of scene, and that was it.
What kind of fields?
Not, it was just like grass, and there were no trees. There's really nothing else around the parking lot. It was just like a blacktop parking lot, and that was it. I could see grass and a blue sky and sun, and that was about it.
Mm. Wow, this is a very powerful dream.
Mommy.
Very powerful. The idea of bullish versus bearish. Think of the stock market like the Wall Street bull. So the bull is the idea that things are going to go up, right? Or they're going to go, times are going to be good is the idea, but then the floor falls out. And so the floor falls out means it's like what happened. We saw the same thing in advance happening with oil, where we saw that oil was either in the basement or in the toilet or on the floor. And then the oil prices went to actually $0 a barrel. So it's the idea of initially the bull is the idea of a taking off of prices or inflation. And then the floor falling out is the idea of a massive drop. And what you saw underground was what was exposed was basically the crisis committee. That there's often governments, in order to keep people in line, to manipulate people of sorts, they manufacture crises, which we do over and over and over again here in America, especially with the media and everything else, to be able to distract from what's really going on, or having people find out what's really in the narrative, what the news really is. They have the watch the birdie kind of a thing, you know. And so food prices obviously is something that hits home. It's talking about a manipulation in food prices. It's talking about, and you seeing basically very clearly what was behind all of this and how they were trying to be able to remanufacture another crisis down the road, because they had the mold for how they could raise prices, cause inflation, cause things to trend upward. But you saw that underground in the basement. Literally underground means the idea of it being done in a secret place, in a dark place, not above board. But when you walk out, things are fine. It's a bright, sunshiny day. You see the grass, you see the fields. Everything is okay for you and your family. And even when the bull tries to charge at you, you rebuke it. And the idea of food shortages. I mean, we even had from the White House them announcing that there are going to be food shortages. You know, none of this is by accident. None of this is like, oh, well, we don't know what happened, or it's Russia, or it was the pandemic, or it was the the storage ships backing it. No, all of this is 100% intentional and 100% either bad policy or manufactured difficulties for the American people. We could end the oil crisis and the energy crisis and skyrocketing gas prices at any moment that we wanted to, in a matter of days, if we wanted to, with just a change in policy. So I think it's really interesting. God is letting you.
You're muted, John. Can't hear you.
He's letting you know personally not to be afraid, and that it's not going to affect you, but also what is coming and what may happen in the very near future.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Neil, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, kind of along the same lines. I heard the bull market and the floor falling out from under it, so it's going to crash. The market's going to crash.
Mhm.
But when you get to the basement, the mold for the bull, the upside down mold, is an indication that they can create another one of these crises at a moment's notice because they have the mold for it. They've created one and gave it life. The mold that's being poured, it also kind of harkens back to the golden calf. In Egypt, or when they were wandering around the Sinai at the foot of Mount Sinai, just the idea that this is not a good thing. This bull is not a good thing. It's a sinful thing. And the fact that you're walking out into a parking lot, there's going to come a time when you walk out, there'll be a period of rest because parking lots, you're not moving in a parking lot. You're not on a freeway. You're not in a car. You're just kind of there. So there's going to be a period of where it'll disappear, but you're going to be waiting for something. And it looks like the field ahead is, a bright sunny day and good times.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I had all my friends working on this for a while, and they're all really excited to hear this dream interpretation. So,
really interesting dream. Thanks for sharing it with us, Katie.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you
Katie.
so much. Have a good night.
Wow, so that's a current events dream, but also a dream with actionable intelligence for the family there, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream of foretelling. It's God's telling them what's coming, so get prepared. That the ground or the floor is going to fall out of the market. And there's been a couple dreams that have indicated that, hyperinflation and the bull market turning into a bear market. This is just a confirmation of that for her, a personal confirmation, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. Stella. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Stella.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. You got a dream for us, huh?
Mhm.
Awesome.
Okay. This was January 3rd, 2022. I had a dream my cousin had a little sister. We were trying to play a game, so my cousin went to get her sister. So I was alone in the front yard. When I looked over, it was dark, but when I looked at the sun, it was bright. So I started worshiping God for making the sun to give us light. Then I saw a tiny white speck come out of the sun. I was scared, so I closed my eyes. Then I felt it. It touched my cheek. Then the Lord said, 1.5, room 11. Then my cousin came in the front yard, and I said, the Lord spoke to me, and she nodded her head.
The Lord said, what? What did he say?
1.5, room 11.
1.5, room 11?
Mhm.
Wow. That's really interesting. Awesome. 1.5, room 11. So, Neil, you want to go ahead?
You go first on this one. Now we're getting back here.
I think that means we stumped the general, Stella.
Yeah, numbers one. I'm a numbers person, but these numbers in dreams always stump me. So I'm listening for an answer on this one. So, John, you could take it away.
1.5, room 11. Does 1.5, room 11 mean anything to you, Stella?
No, not really.
Not really. Okay. What's the numbers? Don't tell me your whole street address, but just the numbers of your house for your street.
What are they? 2521.
2521. Okay. 2521. 1.5, room 11. Wow. So it started out that you had family over. You were gonna go outside and play, and you were getting your little sister or somebody else's little sister?
My cousin, she sort of ran in the backyard to do something, and she was going to get her little sister.
And she doesn't have a little sister.
Okay. So you were in your backyard.
In the front yard.
Okay, you were in the front yard, but the front yard of the house that you live in now.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And then your cousin was over, and then she ran inside to get her little sister, and then you looked up to the sun and you saw a bright speck come out of the sun towards you.
Yeah, and I like got a little scared, so I closed my eyes and then I felt it touch my cheek.
It was dark first, though, right? Before you saw the
Yeah,
sun.
like when I looked over to the side, it was like pitch dark, and when I looked at the sun, it was bright. So I started praising God for giving us the sun to give us light, and then that's when I saw the white speck.
The white speck. Wow, that's fascinating. Did it feel like the white speck, was it like something traveling through space down towards you? Or
I
did it,
don't know. It was just like it was there was a sun, and then I like saw something white come out of it, and like it was like shining and stuff.
okay. And when it touched you, how did it feel?
It kind of like just felt like if somebody would have like touched your cheek with like your finger or something.
Okay, so it wasn't like super hot or anything.
No.
No. Okay. Wow. This is really interesting. 1.5. And so then did it speak? Well, where did 1.5 room 11 come in? So it was after it touched you, then what happened?
So then it touched the white speck touched my cheek, and that's when the Lord said 1.5 room 11.
1.5 room 11. How old are you?
8.
8. Okay. Interesting. So the idea of being in your front yard represents something that's going to happen in the future, but something that's going to happen in the near future. Because if it was like across the street or far away, that would be like looking out your front window or something that's going to come in front of you. But if you're right in your front yard and it's dark, I believe the darkness represents a dark time.
So John, you asked about the street numbers, and I don't know. This is why she asked me what the numbers were, because we recently moved. We're living with my mom right now, waiting. We have property waiting to build. So I don't know if that has any significance. So when she had this dream, we were living at my mom's still.
Okay. What was the numbers of your mom's or of the other house?
18005.
18005. Oh, well, that's interesting. So you got the 1 and the 5 in there, and she's 8 years old. And the 00 is kind of close to 11.
Or OO in room.
Oh, yeah. That is interesting. 1.5 room 11. Huh. Well, it's fascinating because I feel like it's talking about something that's going to happen. I don't feel like it's a bad thing. It seems like it's a dark or a difficult time. Have you guys been through a difficult time lately?
No, I don't think so.
Not really? Okay. All right.
In the sense that like plans for the house, just like that. But other than that, no. It's been going pretty well.
Okay, good. Awesome. So the idea that there was darkness around is just, again, the atmosphere. I feel like it's the times and seasons that we're in. And then the sun came out, and it was daytime, right?
Yeah.
But when you went outside initially, it was dark. So like it was dark, like a storm was there.
It was like if you were to like go to bed at like 10 o'clock or something, it would be like dark outside.
Okay. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the sun comes out, it's super bright, and you're thanking God for the sun and a bright sunny day. And then, so it's interesting that you're in the middle of thanking God, and this white thing comes out, this white piece comes out of the sun, which to me it's indicative of an encounter with God, that there was something that happened in the dream where you encountered either God himself or an angel. Obviously coming from the sun represents coming from the heavens, from someplace that was bright, versus like something coming out of the darkness would feel probably totally different. But because it was coming from the sun and you could see it coming towards you, it felt good. And the fact that it touched your cheek is just, a sign of love and affection, that, God loves you, that he's got his finger on you, that he sees you. that type of thing. And then he's giving you a very specific message with the numbers. God help us with the numbers. 1.5 room 11. Yeah.
I don't know if this fits in or helps to move us towards 1.5 room 11, but I heard dark became light. There was one time in the world when light became dark, and then it became light again. It was in Jerusalem on Golgotha when Jesus was hanging on the cross. He said, on or about the 6th hour, between the 6th and the 9th hour, darkness fell across the land until the 9th hour, and then it became light again. And when you look up, you see the sun. It might be a play on words that you're not looking at the physical sun that we see in our solar system, but the sun, Jesus Christ. So you're looking up and seeing the sun, and he's the one who touches your cheek. And I don't know if that helps at all leading to 1.5 room 11, but that's what I heard.
Well, here's what I heard. I heard Genesis 1, verse 5. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, then there was morning the first day. So 1.5 to 11 would, so I'll just read the rest. And then God said, let there be a vault, which a vault is like a room. Let there be a vault between the waters to separate the water from the water. So God made the vault and separated the water under from the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky. Then there was evening, then there was morning the second day. Then God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place and let dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land and gathered the waters, and he called seas. And then God said that it was good. Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it according to the various kinds. And it was so. So what's fascinating is this is talking about the creation of the world.
The room we live in.
The world we live in. And it was dark first, and then it became light. And then there was the vault, which I forgot that was even in here. The idea of a vault, of course, is like a room, going up into verse 11, which is basically the whole land, the seeds, the vegetation, the trees, the various kinds. So I feel like it's, I feel like what God is doing is he's sharing with you something that has to do with the creation of the world. And that sounds kind of deep and like a lot, but what he's letting you know is that you're a friend of his, that you're a friend of God. It was said of Moses that God spoke to Moses face to face like a man speaks to his friend. And so the idea that something is coming in there, at first it's dark and then it's light, something is coming out of the sun. You're in the midst of talking to God and something is coming towards you and you can see it coming towards you and then it touches you and you're not scared. It doesn't feel weird or you're not kind of freaking out. You're just like, oh, wow, this is just like something, touched the side of my cheek. I feel like is God letting you know that he's near you and that he's close to you. And then I feel like what he's doing is he's giving you an invitation to show you more. And what he wants to show you is in relations to Genesis 1, verse 5 through 11, where it talks about the dark becoming light. And it talks about this massive room. Like it would have to be the biggest room in all of creation, because I've never heard of a room. A vault is a room. It's, 4 walls, a floor, and a ceiling. And this would be the idea of the large, because it's the vault that separates like the rain clouds from, the oceans and the lakes and stuff. And so I feel like he kind of gave you a secret code in there. So you could go back, and what I would do is go back and read the story of the creation of the world in Genesis, I know that there's something really special that God wants to share with you, almost like as if you were there, because parts of the dream are reproduced in Scripture, which is fascinating. Because when I heard Genesis, because verse 1 or Genesis is the first book of the Bible, so 1.5, I heard Genesis 1 verse 5. I had no idea what Genesis 1 verse 5 said. And it talks about the separating of the light from darkness, which is like the first part that you see. So it totally fits into your dream, and I didn't know that. And then between verse 5 and the end of verse 11 is the room or the vault that separates the waters above from the waters below. And so God has like a really special calling on your life. Do you like science?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She gets visions all the time too, and yeah. So yeah.
She's a special girl. I really feel like God wants to. I love science. My dad had a dual doctorate in biology and physics, and I was in the nuclear physics field for 13 years. And so I love science. And so like the idea of creation is absolutely fascinating to me, because it's the story of how the world was born. And I feel like I felt like you might like science, and like there was something that God wanted to impart to you even at this young age. The other thing I thought of too is if you take 8 and you turn it to its side, it's the infinity symbol, but it's also like 2 O's, like the 2 O's in room. And so there's something that God wants to kind of mark your life with or share with you at 8 years old that you're going to remember into your 20s and 30s. And even, as you're an adult and you become a mommy and all these things that happen in your life, you're going to remember this dream and how God wanted to share with you. Like you were praising him for the son. And it was almost like he was saying, let me give you a code that you can then take to somebody that knows how to translate the code. And what it's going to do is it's going to show you the story of how I separated the light from the dark and how I made the world. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I've never heard a dream like that before. That is a really special dream, Stella.
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
That was amazing. Anytime you guys want to come back on live dreams, you're welcome.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we talked about having a kids' night only dream, live dream light. It'd be a good idea. I mean, she just reminded me of it. Their dreams are just fascinating. I mean, to hear what God is saying to little children is just amazing. I mean, you think they're adults. It's whatever he's putting into their heads in dreams. It's just fascinating, and it has a huge impact on their life too.
Yeah, I love how people say there's no junior Holy Spirit. Like God doesn't dumb the experience down for kids. Like he calls kids higher. Come and witness my creation. Like come and see the sun and let me touch you and let me give you a code that, just like a lot of codes that we get that we can't figure out. And it's like, man, God, you got to show us what this means. I mean, that is just such a really special encounter. I love that.
Yeah, I think we assume that children have a childlike mentality too, but God cuts through that and tells them exactly what they need to know. And sometimes it's more profound than we can understand.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go with Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Welcome to Live Dreams.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Kelly.
Absolutely.
My dream that I'm going to talk about tonight is I had it on February 4th of this year. I'm in a different country, not sure where. It just feels like I'm in a different country. I'm with others. I don't believe my family is with me. Standing, looking around, I see dirt, maybe a little grass hut to my left. Next, we are kneeling next to a 3-foot-high table, organizing maybe something. I pick up a small net thing and hold it up in front of me. There are 2 socks, but they are not the correct pair. It seems as though we are being watched. No talking. A man comes, sits in front of me. He asks me about the work I'm doing, seems suspicious of me and my work. I go back to work looking for the correct pair that matches the socks I had picked up earlier. The man was Asian, chunkier, shorter than the typical man. My attention abruptly goes towards two boys. One might be a man. They are being pulled along the grass, kind of like rolling down a hill, but sliding across. With this long, sturdy, but wavy-like thing, about 40 feet long, and not sure about how wide, maybe 20 feet. The boys are about 10 to 15 feet apart, about 4 inches thick. One trying to catch the other, maybe, going at a pretty good speed. The dream ends. And then when while I was writing down the dream, Light of the World by Lauren Daigle came to my spirit.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you read the dream again? There was some stuff that I thought you were talking about one thing, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like I must have missed something that you said.
Okay, sure. I'm in a different country, not sure where. It just feels like I'm in a different country. I'm with others. Don't believe my family is with me. Standing, looking around, I see dirt, maybe a little grass hut to my left.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we are kneeling next to a 3-foot-high table, organizing maybe something. I pick up a small net thing and hold it up in front of me.
Net? Like a fishing net?
Net, N-E-T.
Okay.
There are 2 socks, but they are not the correct pair. It seems as though we are being watched. No talking. A man comes, sits in front of me. He asks me about the work I'm doing. He seems suspicious of me and my work. I go back to work looking for the correct pair to match the socks. My attention abruptly goes towards 2 boys. So I was down in front of me, and then now I'm looking across out the field. One of the boys might be a man, but they're both male. They are being pulled along the grass, kind of like rolling down a hill, but sliding across the land. With this long, sturdy, but wavy-like thing, about 40 feet long, not sure how wide, maybe 20 feet. The boys are about 10 to 15 feet apart, and the thing is about 4 inches thick. One trying to catch the other, maybe, going at a pretty good speed, and then the dream ends. And then when I was writing it down, I heard in my spirit, Light of the World by Lauren Daigle.
Okay, so the 40-foot by 20-foot, 4-inch thick wavy thing, I see like a massive sheet of cardboard or like a sled or something that they're on top of, that they're being dragged across the grass with. Is that right?
It was above them.
Oh, it was above.
Like they were underneath, and it was like above them.
So it was like floating above them?
Yeah, like wavy.
Okay, and it was 4 inches thick.
About 4 inches thick, yeah.
So it was like a flying carpet kind of thing, or like.
You know what those? I don't know what they're called, but they go in the water. A whole bunch of people could stand on them. Yeah. They're blue. You can stand on them and jump off. They float.
Yeah.
It's just a flat. It's kind of like that, just on a larger scale.
Was that the thing that was dragging them across the grass, or no?
I think it was high-speed winds that was making them go
So it was like separate. There was the thing that was being blown in the wind, but then they were being dragged across. They were kind of rolling across the grass, unconnected to the thing above them.
Yeah, they weren't touching it. It was just hovering above them as they were. I think high winds were blowing them, and this thing was hovering above them. Okay.
Well, that's interesting. Huh. So the idea of being in a primitive place represents, I feel like it, first of all, it represents overseas. It represents, my first thought was Africa, but not necessarily Africa. Obviously the dirt, the grass hut, you think of third world type of primitive situations.
That's what I thought when I was there.
Yeah, possibly the idea of tribal. The idea, of course, of a net is reminiscent of Peter, I will make you fishers of men. The idea of being on a missions trip or some sort of evangelistic outreach of being the purpose that you were there. And then the socks that were mismatched, were they inside the net?
Yeah.
Okay, so the net was like carrying clothes, apparently, that had been washed, presumably. And then you were, huh?
Or fished out.
Or fished out.
Or
Okay.
fished out.
Yeah. Okay. So the idea of socks that are mismatched represents, to me, this is just what I hear, is like leave the 99 and go after the one. It's like when you do laundry and you're always missing that one sock, like where did the one sock go? And it's always, typically it's the one that you need. It's not all the other socks that you don't care about that you just wear. It's that one dress sock that, it's
the dryer sock.
Yeah, you can't find the one sock that would be the sock you want. And so to me, it's just the whole idea of intentionality in international evangelism. The fact that you were being watched, to me, represents the idea particularly of surveillance. It feels like governmental surveillance, as in you being in a place where people would watch closely your efforts there with trying to proselytize others, the population, right? And so then the idea of the boys in the field, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like they're playing, like they're having fun.
I didn't take it as fun. I think it was.
So it was more like getting caught up in a windstorm, almost like a tornado, and they were
right. Maybe not total panic, but kind of scary.
Okay. Well, the fields, of course, have an evangelistic overtone to them, according to the parables of Jesus as well. Think of the harvest is ripe, the laborers are few, send workers into the field. But it also reminds me of the idea of the whirlwind. Reaping the whirlwind is kind of indicative of judgment, or a lot of people think of things as the last days. I like what Vanessa says here: lost socks or lost souls. Mission trips. Yeah, so I love what our friends are saying here. That's kind of my thoughts from a 50,000 foot level. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, I get the same idea, but the fact that it's an Asian man, I kind of saw some like a South Pacific kind of thing. The huts would have the same view as you would in Africa. It's kind of that same feeling, just a different location. It seems like it's more of a Pacific Islander kind of thing, and I don't know if that rings with what you were seeing at the time. Also, being watched, it's surveillance. I agree with that. The fact that you're kneeling at a 3-foot table, I think, also indicates a missionary kind of posture. That's the work that you're doing. The two mismatched socks. I'd heard something else. What was it? It wasn't looking for the one. Oh, it was the there was a mismatch in because the socks are worn on the feet. That's the preparation of the gospel of peace, and there's a mismatch somewhere along the way that needs to be corrected before you can move on. Because it's kind of hard to wear two different socks. It's kind of uncomfortable. You can do it, but it's a little awkward. The two boys being blown, or the one boy and the man, whichever it might have been, I heard being blown about by any wind of doctrine. That these people, until you got there, have been blown about by something else, by a false doctrine, or just whatever their native culture is. Like in Korea, it's Confucianism. It's a very it seeps into everything, and they're being blown apart by that. The big wavy thing above them kind of stumps me. I'm not sure what that points to, but it's a huge
It was
thing
really weird.
waving above them. And
When I was telling you again, I was thinking like UFO, but
yeah, it's kind of like it's like a wave that's in the air. You know, the concept of a flying carpet came to mind, but that's not. I don't think that's not what it's talking about. But I think it's a massive covering over them that may keep whatever you're saying from coming to them. I don't know.
okay.
What do you think, John?
Well, I think it's definitely talking about overseas, something that God is doing in a literally a movement overseas, right? And yeah, God.
The night before I had this, you were talking that you wanted short dreams, and pretty much none of my dreams are short. So I asked him, is there anything that I need to tell John that it could be a short dream? And this is literally what he told me, that when I fell asleep. So that's why I thought before I went to bed.
That 40 by 20 thing, I heard overshadowing.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea of literally a movement in the fields and people getting kind of caught up or literally blown away just represents, I feel like blown away with like the goodness of God, like a movement overseas that kind of overshadows what's happening, and people are literally blown away by like the miracles, by the presence of the Lord. Well, I love what it says in, it says it is the kindness of God that leads us to repentance, and it's just the whole idea, like when Peter was, both nets breaking, boats sinking, it has the biggest haul of fish they probably ever had, falls on his face and says, "Depart from me, I'm a wicked man." It wasn't because Jesus was there preaching repentance. It was because it was like walking up to somebody who's having financial problems and giving them $100,000, and they just, crumble like, I'm not worthy. I don't deserve this. And so I feel like that's what the blown away, the blown away part means. And Neil, somebody said, I wonder what your thoughts were on this. The mismatched socks, North and South Korea.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking about. I think I mentioned Korea, and I think that might be part of that. And to go along with what you were saying, John, about them being blown away, the hovering piece of this massive, it doesn't seem, it seems like it's like this one of these giant neoprene mats, but just the word hovering, and this thing hovering above is the same word used in Genesis, where John was just talking to Stella about, at the beginning, the Holy Spirit or the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. Mm-hmm. And that hovering, the word hovering actually means having a very intimate relationship with whatever's below it. And that's when the Holy Spirit hovers over us, it's a loving, intimate relationship with us. And that word, just hovering, kind of fits into what John is saying, that they're going to be blown away by it, but the Holy Spirit's going to be hovering over them, kind of comforting them, and establishing a relationship with them.
So with everything going on overseas, maybe he's saying that there's going to be comfort coming to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it represents, there's so many parables of Jesus mixed in with this dream, and I feel like it's a good dream, and it's a God particularly talking about the lost, talking about caught up in the nets, fishers of men, the fields, hovering, brooding, all of these things, and I feel like God is. I've heard that too, that there will be one Korea. I've actually heard that there's a friend of mine was addressed by the angel of Korea, and he said north or south, and the angel was adamant, "I am the angel of Korea." So it's the idea of oneness. But yeah, I feel like there's going to be things that are, and what kind of in conclusion, what comes to mind is the verse that says, "I will do something in the nations so amazing that you would not believe it if I would have told you." And that's the whole idea of the figurative blown away type of thing, where you're
Okay.
just working with a net. You got your clothes basket thing, you're looking for your mismatched socks, and across the way you literally see people literally blown across this field, and this hovering thing that's just like over the top of them, and you're like, what in the world is that?
Do you think that he's calling me to go on a mission?
I think he's calling you to find the socks. It doesn't. That's a really good question. The dream doesn't appear to be indicative of you going somewhere because you're already there. But if you have a heart, certainly for this part of the world, particularly Asia or Africa, maybe tribal communities, rural, third world type of thing, probably near water, probably heavy in agriculture because of the field, and fishing because of the net. So people have mentioned things like Korea or Vietnam or places like that, as well as parts of Africa. I think this could be a piece of confirmation, but the dream doesn't say, Kelly, I want you to go overseas.
Okay.
The dream says, I'm telling you what I'm doing in places overseas. Now, that could mean because he wants you to go there eventually, but I would wait to get that confirmation. And I do believe that there is something that you'll have that'll be a special kind of motherly, like sorting things out wherever you go, bringing order and helping to find the lost ones.
Okay. That fits better because I didn't have any thought of going on a mission. So I'm thinking, oh, maybe he is.
Yeah. No, I think you're good.
Okay. Kelly, do you or any of your family have any military background?
No, actually, maybe way back kind of thing. But my daughter did try to join the Navy, I want to say. I forgot. No, the Air Force. Sorry, Air Force. And she was denied because of a health issue. But that was the closest.
All right.
Yeah. Wow. Great dream.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Kelly.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
Wow.
Awesome.
That was,
we were talking earlier today about how doing a Bible study on visions or even the parables of the Bible can also help open up understanding the figurative language, because Jesus spoke in the figurative language.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the going through the visions and the parables of the Bible would definitely, I mean, you go through the 21 dreams through the Bible, that it covers a multitude of, well, all the dreams that talk about in the figurative language of God. There are very few that are literal. Maybe Abimelech's dream is probably the most literal of all of them. It's almost like he's in the dream having a conversation with God and talking back and forth with him. The rest of them, have symbols that actually need interpretation. The visions can be interpreted the same way as you do dreams, and prophecies, the parables, I guess we're going to see if we can actually decode them like you can dreams, but it seems to indicate that you can.
Yeah, definitely. Fascinating. Diane.
Hi, John. Hi, Neil.
Hi,
I'm excited. This is the first time I've ever been on.
Well,
although I do tune in every week, maybe a couple days later to watch. But I did submit this dream, and I'm going to go ahead and share it with you guys.
All right, please do.
All right. This was on January 31st of 2022 this year, and I called this the semi-truck workout. I had the way I woke up, God oftentimes will, if I have a dream, I'll hear my alarm go off. So I'm just going to read it as I wrote it in my journal. It was 3:45 a.m. My God alarm went off again. I woke up to hearing my alarm go off. I checked my phone. It was actually exactly 3:45 a.m. That's exactly 20 minutes before my alarm was supposed to go off. I believe God does this, so I'll wake up, remember, and pay attention. I woke up out of this alarm dream, and I was also able to remember a previous dream. So I had 2 dreams that night, but I'm sharing the one that I submitted, and it's the semi-truck workout. I was arranging my class participants into 3 different groups, as I often do before beginning a workout class. After dividing everyone up into 3 groups, I took one of the groups with me in a semi-truck. My group consisted of different people that I couldn't remember, but I did recognize some of them to be some of the Amish kids that I went to grade school with and rode the bus with. I was driving the truck down the road, realizing that I had never drove a semi-truck before. I knew at some point I would need to find some place to turn the big semi-truck around and meet back up with the rest of my class. I found a gravel path with a chain link fence that led into a gas station area, and I planned to turn around there. I realized that they might think that the semi-truck was stolen because I realized it didn't belong to me, but I was driving it around. I pulled up to a very narrow opening where there were people standing together, propping up another semi-truck that I was attempting to drive underneath. It was like an underpass or something like that. It was very tight fit. We weren't sure if we had enough clearance to make it under the other semi. The people that were propping the semi up began to rearrange themselves and move out of the way to help us pass under. We were able to get under it okay. And then we were back on the gravel road, and I needed to punch the gas really fast to accelerate up that hill. So I looked at my foot to punch the gas, but the gas pedal was somebody else's bare foot. And that was the end of the dream. And I woke up to my fake alarm going off.
Amazing. So at the beginning, you were talking about 2 groups, and say that part again.
It was 3 groups. I was arranging my class. That particular day, I teach a class early morning, which is why I set my alarm for 4:05 a.m. So I was arranging my class participants into 3 different groups, as I often do before beginning a workout class. Okay.
So you're like a personal trainer, aerobics instructor.
Yeah, I actually owned 2 fitness facilities, and I've been training for 25 years now. Group fitness, personal training, that kind of thing.
Wow, I love it. Okay, and so you take your group, you put them into the semi, you're barreling down the road, you feel like you got to do a U-turn, and you go into this chain link fence gravel area, almost like a gas station, and you're going to do a U-turn there.
Yeah, I was planning on it. And the people that were in my semi were Amish people that I remember. I grew up. There's actually 4 that I remember growing up with. They rode the bus with me. They were absolute beasts, in PE class, that kind of thing. But they were in the truck. Those are the only ones I recognized.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And then as you're trying to pull out of the gas station, and there's another truck in the way?
No, I was pulling into the gas station. It was a gravel chain link fence, and there was a passageway where it was another semi that people were literally holding the semi up, and I was supposed to pass underneath it. And it was really tight, and I'm like, we're not going to fit through this thing. And then the people that were holding it up started working together, moving around, making clearance for us to pass through.
So there were people like just standing there holding it up with their hands?
Yeah, they were like, they're up against a wall, propping it up, and I'm like supposed to go through this thing. And I'm like, this is super tight. I don't know if I can do this. But everybody started rearranging themselves to be able to hold this thing up so we could pass through and make it through.
Wow. What's that verse? Pass through. Is that the same verse that talks about wide is the gate, or the way that leads to destruction, and narrow is the way that leads to life? I think it is. Yeah, this is a really, Neil, did you have something?
Not yet, no.
This is a really interesting dream. There's a couple of plays on words in it. The idea of a semi-truck, I heard almost truck, which reminds me of a lot of these, like, we call them kiddie trucks here in Texas, when these really tiny little mini trucks that guys drive around with. And we're like, really? I mean, you could put that truck on like a cheap suit in the morning. I mean, it's a semi truck. It's truck-like or truck-esque, but it's not what I would call a truck, And so I think it's a play on words, the idea of a semi truck. I also think of and not that this is what your dream was, but the idea of a semi-truck trailer with the top shaved off. So it was almost like the second story of a double-decker bus. It was almost like a convertible trailer or a semi-truck, not a whole truck, but a semi-truck. And the idea, too, is that semi-trucks have been used, particularly in border towns, as a means of hauling people. And that's what's happening with you, is there's people that are in the back. The idea of the Amish, I think, is really interesting because it represents, if we're talking in a trafficking sense, which I'm not sure that we are, but if we are, it represents the idea of people that are not connected to technology, not as easily traced, not as easily found, not as easily documented. But it's interesting because you said out of the several people that were on the truck with you, those were the ones that you recognized.
Mhm.
So nobody else may recognize them. Then they may not have facial recognition or fingerprints or any of that, but you recognized them and you knew who they were because they were friends of yours. So the idea of you were driving the semi truck, right?
Mhm.
The idea of driving a semi truck in particular is a large vehicle that can haul a lot of typically things, but not necessarily our first choice. But in the event that you did have to move a lot of people, you could certainly move a lot of people in a semi truck.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Sometimes I yawn. And so the idea of going down this road and then realizing for some reason you had to do a complete U-turn. Of course,
Yeah, I was thinking I needed to at some point meet back up with my other class participants that I was keeping. At the beginning I was dividing them up, which I do all the time. I have different sections of a workout, but I took this group off, and then I knew, oh, hey, I have to go back and meet back up with them at some point. So I'm gonna have to turn this thing around.
Yeah. And the idea, of course, of a gas station is the idea of fueling up, the idea of being energized, having go juice. It's obviously akin to being hydrated if you're going through a pretty intense workout, or even an energy drink. And so there's the idea that I want to get to that place, but that's going to be the place that really turns things around. Excuse me. It can also be the idea of it turns around your journey because there's an infusion of strength and energy at that moment. The idea of being in a gravel road with a chain link fence represents the idea of a level of barrier or restriction, but also somewhat of a primitive place with, obviously the gravel road. There's not a lot of, at least where I live, there's not a lot of gas stations that have gravel, roads or gravel parking lots. Excuse me. So the whole idea of, I heard turn the beat around, like the song Turn the Beat Around, but the whole idea of shifting complete 180, doing a complete 180 and heading back in the opposite direction. That could be going back for the people that you left behind. It could be going back, which is what it sounds like it is, because you had responsibility for all of these groups. You separated it into 3 groups. You took one of the groups with you and you're barreling down the road. And then you realized the reason you did the U-turn, right, is you realized, obviously you had to turn around, but that's why you were pulling into the gas station, was to do the U-turn.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so it's inside this chain link fence, which is a place of boundaries. Excuse me. It's not the open road. It represents a place of gates or boundaries passing through, which is entering somebody else's domain. The idea of loose gravel represents instability, particularly if you're thinking, moving fast and doing a U-turn. You don't want to do that on loose gravel in a semi-truck or even in a car, really. You were carrying, I agree, you were carrying a heavy load, but you wanted to get back, and then it was going in that there was the blockage that they had to lift up, or coming out?
I pulled into that gas station area, and when I pulled up, it was it was like they were propping up another semi truck, and I had an opening that I needed to go through. and the people were literally just holding it up. And I was like, oh, this is really, really tight. I don't know if I'm going to make it, but the people started rearranging themselves and kind of moving things around so I could get through okay.
Yeah. That was on your way in. That wasn't turning around and heading back out.
Yeah, that was in the way in, and I had to get through that before you could turn around and punch it up the hill.
Right. And so you woke up once you were underneath the truck.
Yeah, after I got out from underneath it, we made it underneath okay after, but everybody rearranged themselves. I was looking at a hill up a gravel, and I had to accelerate. I knew I had to punch it. And so I looked down at my where the gas pedal would be, and it was a foot. It was like a bare foot. It wasn't a gas pedal. I was supposed to
pedal was a foot.
That. Yeah, it was a foot, barefoot.
That's really interesting. So did you have to go up the hill to do the U-turn?
No, I had made it through the underpass that people were rearranging themselves. And then after I made it through, there was this hill that I had to accelerate up. I knew I needed to punch the gas to get up this hill. And so it was after I went through the little underpass.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea of being in a tight spot, boundaries, chain link fence, somebody mentioned, which I think is really interesting, is the truckers in Capitol Hill, and the whole idea of how, like, for the State of the Union, they set up the chain link fence again, literally trying to get under something or get out from under something, and people literally by hand lifting up the truck is the idea of a movement of people lifting up the truckers and being in support or behind what the trucks are doing, but still going through a tight spot and getting out from underneath something, and then knowing that, again, trying to accelerate up a hill on gravel in a semi, that would not be a situation you would want to be in. So I feel like, this takes on a whole different connotation with that ending there. And even the whole idea of the pedal being somebody else's foot, it's like somebody has a foot in your forward momentum is kind of what that represents. Mm-hmm. The idea of separating into groups represents the idea of social distancing. The idea that normally I could teach a class with 50 people in the studio, but now I can only teach it with 15 because we have to be 6 feet apart and blah, blah, blah. And so it represents the idea of a level of restriction based on space. Again, if you have your typical class size, you could fit all of those people certainly in the back of a semi. You wouldn't have to break them up into 3 groups in order to, unless for some reason there were these ridiculous space requirements of each person in the back of the semi needs 10-foot square of their own space or whatever. And so, so you were taking people who were underneath your care, but they were a portion of the people underneath your care. And they were, I just hear the word primitive, not that there's anything wrong with them, but the idea of Amish represents the idea of people that, and again, this is not a judgment on anybody Amish. I have friends that are Amish. But it's the idea of people that may not be completely up on everything that's happening in the world of current events and technology. They live a whole different lifestyle than we do. And I'm sure there's a lot of them that watch the news and are politically active and whatever. But then there's a lot that may have, they can have no idea what's going on in the outside world if they choose to, because it doesn't necessarily affect them as much. And so it was that. It's kind of the idea of being sheltered, a sheltered group of people who didn't know what you knew. And you were in a truck driving at a very fast rate of speed and then realizing we need to turn this thing around, which is the whole idea of what was happening in America. It's the whole idea of the truckers convoy. We need to turn this thing around. And in order to turn this around, we got to pass through the gate. Well, it represents the Beltway, I feel like, in Washington, D.C. And, of course, Washington, D.C. is a gate. It's a spiritual gate, but it's a physical gate of government in the United States. And so getting off there, the whole idea of the gas station too is just how that the price of gas related to what's happening in the world of truckers right now. You know, it's costing them 2 and 3 times what it normally did a year and a half ago to run a load than it does now. And so their lives are being dramatically affected by the machinations of the current administration and, you know, ridiculous bad policy for no inherent reason at all. And so they're literally in a very, very tight spot. And what they want to do is they want to get out from underneath what is on top of them. And what is on top of them is literally a crushing load, is the idea of another semi truck, which what that represents. If you make your living as a trucker in a time of high inflation, particularly in the area of gas prices, it's very, very difficult for you and your family, because I can't imagine that all of that transfers immediately over to what they charge for shipping. I'm sure some of it does, but I'm sure truckers' margins are probably a lot tighter in times like this than they were 2 years ago. And so again, going through the chain link fence, being supported by the people, getting out from getting out from underneath what is on top of them, they still have an uphill battle, which means the struggle isn't over. We still have to accelerate now and gain speed on a gravel road going uphill. So that means that there's still an uphill climb, but it sounds like in the dream, you never actually made the U-turn. You knew you had to make a U-turn. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I just pulled in, and then I saw the truck I had to go under, and then I came out from underneath it. Like, we made it out okay after people rearranged and made space. And then I was just at a hill after I made it through that little underpass.
So it wasn't like you were going back the way you came, but I felt like what was in your heart, the reason you pulled in to this very tight, bordered, fenced-in space, was because you knew you needed to turn this thing around. And so that's the whole kind of plan, whereas we got to turn this thing around. We got to get out from underneath this. The people are supporting the truckers, but we still are in a tight spot. Got to get out from underneath it. And now we have to accelerate uphill in order to literally make it over the hill with a very shaky, not having leadership that we can trust. It's a very shaky ground for them. I mean, people got to wonder if they still want to be in that field at this point, because at any time the government can do crazy stuff and hike gas prices up to $8 a gallon. And that dramatically affects, obviously the desire for people to have anything shipped via trucks, but also it affects their world in a very, very dramatic way. So I feel like God is talking about what's happening in America, the restrictions. I like what you did is you took responsibility for your people, and you were ready for what was coming next. The idea of feet shod with the readiness of the gospel of peace is what Ephesians 6 says. So when you go to put your foot on the pedal, it's somebody else's foot. So it's the idea of literally you're stepping on someone else's toes for you to be able to go and for you to accelerate forward. It's the idea of setting up extreme competition in times of lack, which is what the government does when they artificially jack prices and they make things happen like inflation. It's very, very tough competition-wise. It's kind of like what happened during 2020 when there's massive closures of small businesses. It's very difficult to compete. So many restaurants, bars, clubs, gyms closed down, and a lot of them never reopened because they lost money and they couldn't pay their bills. And so it's that whole idea of literally for you to accelerate and to get the momentum you need to make it up the hill with the unsteady grounding, you got to step on somebody else's toes. So this is the second dream now that God is speaking about the current events and the financial situation in America. I believe what the actionable intelligence for us and for you in particular is continue to have a heart for your people and to want to take care of your people, those that are underneath your care. You have a family?
I do. I have 3 kids and I have 2 twin grandbabies.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool.
I actually have a funny story with that. I had a dream early 2021 where it was just a simple statement: you're going to have more babies. And fast forward November 19th of 2021, I have 2 new twin grandbabies. So,
Wow.
I did family, yep. Thank you.
That's awesome. So the idea of, did you say you had 3 kids?
I do. I have 3 kids. My older daughter is the one who has the twins.
Okay. So the idea of separating into 3 groups too,
Yeah.
you know, 3 kids, like 3 main groups. And of course, obviously they're making their own families and they will continue. And so there'll be 3 different groups of people. But the idea that your heart was to take everybody with you. You're like, we got to turn this thing around because I got to get back to the rest of my people. And so that was your desire. That's your desire as a mom. I also feel like there's somewhat of an apostolic leadership thing that you carry as both a pioneer, someone that'll literally step on the gas and push through difficult times, but also somebody that wants to go and wrangle the rest of the people to make sure that everybody goes with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that really resonates.
Yeah.
Is there one of your children that you work with or that works with you in your business?
No, I actually opened up our first location in 2016. It was a leap of faith. Things were really booming. I took that risk and it really flourished. And we opened up our second location in 2019 and it's been a struggle. It was right before the pandemic. And it's been very, very difficult to get that business up and off the ground when we had just opened right before we got shut down. And so this really does resonate on many levels. And there's just a lot of difficult decisions that I have to make on that second location that I'm just leaning into God for.
Where are you guys at?
We're in Alabama, Huntsville.
Okay. Wow. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I think
When you got into the truck, was your intent to go to a second facility?
No, I said, hey, this group's coming with me. We're going to hit the road on this semi truck, and off we went. And I will say I was questioning myself. I was like, you know what? I don't know how to drive a semi truck. In my dream, I was like, and eventually somebody's going to realize that I don't own this semi truck, or I stole this truck or something like that. I was worried about that as I was pulling into that gas station.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You ever thought of running for office?
That's funny.
No,
I haven't.
You're well spoken, and the idea of what you're talking about in the dream and wanting to take people with you and take care of other people and all of that. It's indicative of leadership. Doesn't necessarily mean political office, but obviously you run 2 businesses and a family and all of that. So yeah, I feel like I'm pressing in for actionable intelligence. I feel like the actionable intelligence is for you to continue to be you, which is drive fast, take people with you, don't be afraid of the turnaround, and press in even when it's difficult. So that may give you some direction on that. Obviously, don't know all of what you're struggling. I used to be a general manager of 2 large multi-million-dollar health clubs. So I feel you on that. And I was also a finance guy. So arranging things economically for the numbers, particularly in that type of a situation, I understand the game a little bit. So I would just encourage you to, if you felt like God said to start that second club, I believe that he will give you the acceleration and the momentum you need, even though you're feeling like it could be stepping on somebody else's toes, which is taking resources from one to fund the other, and it's shaky ground, which represents the gravel. So I think it's speaking directly to your situation. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
This was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Diane.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, awesome. Diane. Wow. Had a couple layers to it.
Yeah, that was a really cool dream. That was one of those ones that you could write out and spend a couple hours on and probably get even more depth from. But yeah, I just love it.
Yeah, it started out at the national level, went down to the personal level, and there's probably a couple in between too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Charlene Watson.
Hey. Hey.
Hey there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
This is a dream I had. I'll just get started. This is a dream I had in February of 21. or yeah, 21. I was getting married at our new church. We had just, in real life, we had just built a new church, and I was getting married in the church. The whole church was filled with flowers. Well, let me rephrase that. From the back of the church all the way to the front, the pews were gone, and there were flowers that looked like it was like a field of flowers, and it was growing up out of the carpet, and they were as tall as me. The scene changes. Well, I pondered it. I said, wait a minute. It's not the flowers. It's the stems of the flowers. It had stems all the way through there, but there was no flowers on the top. And then the scene changes, and I think it's the reception, but I'm not 100% sure. And all I remember is that my son-in-law is speaking to me. His name is Chris. And then a friend is speaking to me, and her name is Jennifer, and it ends. I started going to this church with my husband when we got married. And it wouldn't be a church I would pick, but I go because I love him and I'm submitting to him. And I didn't know if it had something to do with what just happened just recently, because that was in February, and not almost 9 months to the day later, we had a horrible thing happen with our church, and I just wanted to quit so bad. I couldn't stand it. But anyway, I don't know.
So you were getting married in the church.
Yes, it wasn't a man or anything. I never saw a man. I didn't have a wedding dress. I just knew I was getting married.
Okay, that's the idea of covenant and relationship, and obviously of long-term commitment.
Right.
The idea of flowers being there represents, I believe, the fragrance of the Holy Spirit, and the idea of no pews means the stink has been removed.
Well, if there was no flowers, if it was just the stems.
Oh, it's just the stems.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just the stems. At first I thought, oh, I've got a whole church of flowers. That's wonderful. But then I thought, wait a minute, it's just the stems. So
Nip it in the bud. That's what I heard, actually. Stems without flowers. So that's the thorns without the rose. That's no fun. Right?
Right.
Okay.
I have flower dreams a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have very many flower stem dreams, though?
No, this is my only one.
What do you need?
Yeah. Stem is the idea of the base or the foundation. It's the idea of the straight up, like being straight up, addressing the situation, even though it could be a thorny, difficult situation. Yeah, I like, some people have some comments here. No fruit, no maturity, cut at the root. So, sorry, it is super windy out here right now. So you're in this church, you're about to get married. There's no flowers, or there's flowers, there's stems, but no flowers. There's no pews. And then what else?
Then the scene ends and it goes, I don't know if it's a reception, but it's the next part of the scene. I see people, but I don't remember a whole lot of it. My son-in-law, Chris, is speaking to me, and a friend is speaking to me. Her name is Jennifer. And I looked up both those names, and Chris means a follower of Christ, anointed one. And then Jennifer means fair one. And it ends.
Interesting.
The thing that happened just recently, which was 9 months after this dream, was we had been like almost a whole year without a pastor, actually almost a year to the day. And everybody was very excited because we had just nominated in a new pastor, and we had oh goodness. we had a festival, a fall festival at the church, and we had people come and sing. And one of the guys that sang, him and his family had been coming for a couple of years. But the week after the festival, the pastor found out that the man who sang was on the sex registry. And so he quit just like that. He didn't come in. He just quit right on the spot because he didn't know about it. And he thought I don't know, but it doesn't matter. But the church kind of, I don't know if you want to say it split or it was just a big mess. It was a big mess. So we were back to not having a pastor again. But
I heard the problem stems from the carpet or from the foundation.
Oh,
so whatever this foundation of the church was laid, somebody's going to need to go back and kind of review what was laid at the beginning and how it was established.
How would that relate to me?
That's a good question. Are you a member of the church that you're going to now?
Yes.
You don't like it though. You're a member there because your husband likes it. How long have you been there?
Since we got married. I've been married for 8 years.
8 years. Okay.
The night before I had the dream, I was totally upset. And I really just didn't want to go to church the next morning. And I just remember talking to the Lord about it. And I said, Lord, I just really don't want to go. I just did not want to go. And then I had that dream.
Wow.
I think on the encouraging side, though, there is growth in this church. I mean, the fact that they don't have any flowers yet is one thing, but there is growth in the church. The pews are gone. The stink is gone is kind of an interesting take on it. I heard standing room only.
You heard what?
Standing room only. Because there's no place to sit.
Yeah.
Well, does flowers mean grace? I feel like there was no grace for this man and his family. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense, but like, if there was all these people and the foundation isn't on grace of Jesus, you know what I mean? I mean, would that have something to do with what happened the 9 months later?
Well, what was the part about 9 months later? I missed that.
What actually happened just recently. We got a new pastor in, and he found out that one of the people that was singing was on the sex registry, and he didn't know it. And he thought that we were for this. He thought that they shouldn't be anywhere near singing or whatever. But this man had been faithful. He had sat in the pew for a year before he even did anything. And he was just a good, godly man. He got saved, and he's not on the sex registry because he's a pedophile. He just got caught doing porn, like child porn. But it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. I'm just saying that's what happened.
Yeah, the idea that there was no grace or attempt to restore, that was just
right. There was no grace, and there was no grace by the people either. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the part that I was feeling like is, imagine somebody wants to marry you and they want commitment, but they don't want flowers. They don't want a place for people to sit, no dress, no man. Like, this isn't a wedding. This isn't a relationship. This isn't a two-way come together in covenant. The whole idea about covenant is if, like, I'm in covenant with you, you're also in covenant with me. That's the whole point of covenant. It's not one-sided. It's not unrequited love. It's not the people are faithful and they're subject to the whims of a tyrannical pastor, not saying that your pastor is, but there just isn't that. And so it's like all echo and no fragrance is just kind of what I hear. It just doesn't sound like there's been a place made for the people because there's no seats. There isn't the fruit because there's not the buds on the flowers. There isn't the dress, and so you don't get the trappings of the elegance. And what women look forward to when they want to get married is they want to have this wedding. They don't want to just walk up to the front, look at him and say I do, look at her and say I do. Okay, you're done. Like, no, nobody wants that. And so that's what it was. Is they want a level of commitment without, and I want to be very careful here because, what you got to do is take what we're saying and judge it. And you have to say, does this resonate with me? I'm not trying to give you an excuse to leave the church if you don't feel that God is telling you that. But what I am hearing is that, that verse just came to mind in the Bible where it's talking about particularly verbose young men, where it says full of, well, actually, I think it's from Shakespeare. It's full of wind and fury, signifying nothing. The whole idea that the building is empty and a place has not been made for the people. The preparations have not been made for the wedding, and yet you're there to get married. You don't even know who the guy is. You don't have a dress. There's no flowers. There's just the thorny stems. It's just the heartache. It reminds me of the spirit of religion that wants to hold somebody under legalism and under the law. And it's like those religions where they take like the whip and they dance in the streets and beat themselves with the whip. That's the idea of the thorn, or I see roses as the flowers, but like you said, the buds, the flowers are cut off. So you have these thorny stems, which the only thing they do is they cause pain. They're a thorn in the side versus bringing any level of, like you said, oil or fragrance or grace.
The last sentence, I think, kind of summarizes what you just said, John. And the way you're received into the church, the reception afterwards, the person who's speaking to you is the son-in-law, not son in grace, but is the son of the law. So the law is what's the focus on this. There is no grace, and you pointed that out. So maybe the foundational aspect of this is that it's a law-based church and not a balance of law and grace.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Now,
I feel like this person said the spirit of religion. I do believe that.
Yeah.
I do believe that.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to do because it's my husband.
Well, that's the thing. And it's the whole idea of you may stick it out because of the covenant that you made with him. And you may not feel like there's a lot of fragrance or a lot of grace. And something could happen there where either God changes his heart, God opens up his eyes, or the church itself changes. And I wouldn't discount the idea that the church itself could change because you're there. Because out of obedience and an honoring of the covenant with your husband, you allow him to lead you in this area, and you say, where you go, I go, right? The Ruth thing. My people, your people. And even though you don't like it and you're not getting a lot out of it, I believe that God could shift the atmosphere in that church, remove leadership that's bad, bring in leadership that's good, and cause his presence to be there once again because of your sacrifice to be there. Either that, or there's going to be a period of time where he will allow grace and allow grace and allow grace and allow grace. And then in a moment, he will pull you out. He will be like, I'm done. She's out of here. God's done that with me so many times in jobs and ministry situations where just like, at 10 o'clock, nothing happened. At 10:30, I'm on a plane and I never go back, and gone. And that's and it could be that you're there because you're a dreamer, you're a seer. You could be a level of a warning or a voice to this house, and you could be the grace for them. So,
well, I mean,
First Peter 3:1 talks about what you're going through. I think, it says your role as the wife, in the same way the wives must accept, and he's talking about how the church falls under Christ as the authority. The wives must accept the authority of your husbands, which you are honoring. then even if some refuse to obey God's good news, your godly life will speak to them without words, and they'll be won over. So as John was saying, your very presence there may win the church over to the grace side, and your husband also. I don't know what his heart is right now, but you may win him over just because you're being faithful to the authority that you put yourself under.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot that God is saying. There's a lot that God is saying here.
I feel like it. I just want to know what I'm to do.
Well, I think when you get clear direction that tells you to go, you should stay. And I do think the part of I'm getting married, but I don't know the man and I'm not wearing a dress could signify the idea of it's already happened. Even though you're feeling in anticipation, what God is reminding you of is the covenant that you made with your husband, and you're there with him. You're there because of him.
Well, I'm a Sunday school teacher for 8 to 12-year-old kids. And so when I go in early before everybody gets there. And one of the things I started doing is just praying over the church. I do feel like it's a spirit of religion over this church. And I pray over it. I cast out and I go back into my room and I'm praying solid for it. I don't know. I just don't know what to do.
Well, I think what God is saying is he's letting you have a dream where he knows what your situation is. And he's saying that he's giving you a visual picture of how you feel in that situation.
Okay.
And so know that you hear God and that he's speaking to you about the situation, and short of a clear word from him to exit, I would stay.
Okay.
And if God changes the heart of your husband, great. You can drive away together. But, begin to take on, fill in the lack that you see, begin to take on grace for the new pastor and grace for the person that got rejected. And maybe you're to be that fragrance in a place that's very thorny, but not a lot of smell. Mm-hmm. You could become that in that place. And I think a lot of time I've been to churches where I'm like, this place is as dead as a doornail. There is nothing here for me. And a lot of times God reminds me that, well, what makes you think I brought you here for your comfort? Maybe you're the person that can speak into the lives. And so what if you do that? What if you begin to reach out, meet people, talk to people, comfort people? How can I pray for you? What do what's going on in your life? You begin to see where there's no grace and there's a lack of care. You become the person that brings that. It could change the whole atmosphere.
Okay.
So good dream, Charlene. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, take care.
That's a heavy dream.
Yeah, we feel the weight on these dreams, particularly like Diane's dream when people are faced with, economic decisions in their family and their business, and church dreams where, I don't want to speak against the Lord's anointed in a house, but at the same time, somebody is looking for answers and, God is saying, leave. Man, I want people to have the freedom to hear from God, and God will speak to you in dreams about this kind of stuff. What we've found, I just did an interview that's going to be airing soon, and it's going to be talking particularly about the idea of how God speaks to us in ways that prophets won't. And it's titled Mates, Dates, and Babies, but a lot of prophecy schools say don't prophesy mates, dates, and babies. And while that's great, but guess what? People have dreams about mates, dates, and babies, and then they're like, well, what do we do? Because people won't prophesy this into my life, but God will speak to you about it. God is so far out of the box. Like he doesn't have rules. And so he will say what he needs to say to get us positioned where we need to go.
He's got a big toolbox to choose from. He can talk to us in any way. I mean, it's funny how, a lot of times he'll talk to us in movies. The figurative language that he uses is just hysterical. Songs from God knows what, Elvis, AC/DC, whatever, movie blues.
Elvis.
He'll talk to us however he wants. And movies, the list is endless.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, by the way, if you're on Live Dreams, is we're like a family here. There's a community and people like Rhonda. Thanks for sharing, Charlene. I'm going to be praying for you and your husband, and so there's things like that, we like to, one of the reasons why I like to put the comments in is because people are hearing God as well. And, they hear God like Neil and I hear God. And so it's interesting when it's almost like we have the backup of 81 trained people that can hear from the Lord. And so we like to add in what they're saying. Let's go with Megan.
Hey,
Hi there.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Where do you live?
In Ohio,
What part?
Cincinnati.
Okay. I'm from Toledo. And I went to school with, of course, it was a few years ago, with a family that had the last name Bush. And so it's just like, anyway.
Yeah, we're I'm in the southern part.
Okay.
Go Bucks.
Cool.
Okay, so I had this dream on February 9th. And I was with my husband, and we were going to be selling his car to a man who owned a car repair shop. And then we were going to go somewhere else and buy my husband's upgraded car. And so we pulled into this, it was a car repair. We pulled into the garage, and in the parking spot next to mine was this deep blue sports car from the 70s. And the interior was crushed velvet, deep blue. So the whole thing was deep blue, and it was right next to me. And I was like, wow, that's an amazing car. And I knew in the dream that car belonged to the man that we were selling our car to. So we walked up to the counter. He was behind a counter, and my husband started talking to him to negotiate the price. We knew we were going to get a really good deal on it. And I was just looking around the garage while they were negotiating, and there were these animals walking around. And there were some chickens and some other birds, but then all of a sudden these two wire hair terriers came walking in, and then they walked behind the counter. And as they kept walking, it became this big, huge open field of grass. And then the dream ended. So the only thing I will say is when I woke up and I thought about those dogs, they looked just like these two dogs that a friend of mine had in real life, and their names are Joshua and Caleb, which I thought was very interesting. So that's
very interesting.
Yeah.
Who was named Joshua and Caleb? The dogs?
The two dogs, not the dream. They didn't have names, but they looked exactly like the two dogs that my friend used to have in real life, named Joshua and Caleb.
Interesting. What do you got, Neil?
Well, I see the selling of the car as a change of mission. Whatever you're working on right now, I don't know if you're working with your husband on anything, but it seems like whatever your purpose and destiny with the selling of the first car is you're getting rid of it. Not in a bad way. You're moving on to a newer and better upgraded mission. God's going to upgrade you in whatever you're doing. I don't know anything about you, so I'm just saying what the dream kind of indicates, that you're selling it to a guy in a repair shop. Is that right?
Yeah, the guy owned a car repair shop, the one that we're selling it to.
Right. And the car that you're going to buy is from another place, right? It's not from
somewhere else to get a different. And
right.
We knew it was going to be an upgrade, the car.
Right. So the upgrade is not going to be a repair or a retread of the car that you have. This is going to be a completely new mission that you've got. Interesting that the person that's going to help you in that process, the deep blue sports car with the deep blue interior, the color deep blue is indicative of it's a heavenly color. So you have, heaven is blue, earth is red, and something in between is purple. So this card that he's talking about, the person who's associated with it is a godly person. And so at the counter and negotiating. It's kind of interesting that you have chickens and the wire-haired terriers wandering around. But Joshua and Caleb were the ones who said, take the land. So it has something to do with that. You're going to cross into an open field. They crossed into Canaan, across you could almost call the counter as the river that they had to cross to get into Canaan. And so Joshua and Caleb are the ones who are going to lead the charge into the field, and you're going to go with them. So whatever it is, this is a cool mission that you're moving into. It's something that is going to require you to take the land. And so it's a spiritual warfare aspect of it, but you're going to be taking land. And the field of grass I heard the fields are white for the harvest. So it's something to do with evangelism, mission, and it doesn't mean that you're going overseas. Mission field is everywhere around you. You start in Jerusalem, your own backyard, then move to Samaria and all the ends of the earth. Samaria and Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and all the ends of the earth. So this is the next start of that. Is the fields are, I don't know what you're working on, if you're planning on going on a mission trip or whatever, but that's kind of what it looks like. But if you aren't, you're probably going to start. Anyway, that's what I got, John.
Okay.
Interesting. What kind of car does he have now that you were trading in?
He has a Cadillac SUV.
Okay. Like an Escalade?
No, it's like the one below that.
Okay. And the blue car was a sports car, right?
Yeah, it was like from the 70s, and it was, kind of one of those muscle cars, but it was like
Muscle car.
It was really cool. The whole thing was the same color. The interior was crushed velvet, the same color as the outside, and it was cool. It was on my right side when I got out of the car.
Yeah.
All my muscle car dreams are black.
Oh,
Kind of same thing though. They are cool looking. I mean,
yeah.
70s, same era car. I don't know what it was, but it's a cool looking car.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of our Elvis fans are pinging on the blue velvet there.
Oh, I'm not an Elvis fan, so.
You're a blue velvet fan?
Yeah. That's interesting. So you're trading it in, but you're trading it to a guy that fixes cars, and then you see this blue car. But is that the car that you're going to trade it in for?
No, it's just parked next to us. I knew it belonged to the car repairman that we were selling our car to, but we were going somewhere else to get our new car.
Okay, so you weren't going to have it there, but it was just the idea of spirit of might, revelation, a muscle car. This guy, not only did he fix cars, but it seemed like he may have collected them as well. Do you know what the new car is going to be that you're going to pick out?
No, we knew it was going to be an upgrade. We were excited about it. We knew it was going to be new and good.
Yeah. So the idea of a vehicle together, purchasing a vehicle together, represents your marriage and your family. Can also represent a business. What does your husband do? Is he an entrepreneur?
Interestingly enough, since I've had this dream, he is changing. He's going to start his own business. It came out of the blue.
Are you going to be helping him with that?
No pun intended.
Exactly.
Are you going to be helping him with it?
Well, I'm helping him dream about it.
The correct answer is yes.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial wives, you know.
I'm an entrepreneur myself, but he's now going to be one. So that's awesome. I think that represents the upgrade. I was hearing something about, the car is a vehicle to destiny, to get you down the road, to get you to your future, to get you to the destiny that God has. And since it's a vehicle that you'll both be sharing together, it represents the idea. It sounded like you were already in the entrepreneurial game and he needed to upgrade into that, which he's now done. And so I believe it represents that in particular. But trading in the old cars, putting into the hands of somebody that can use whatever it is that you're leaving behind, somebody that can both fix it up, somebody that has the revelation and the power, the might, the strength to be able to do what needs to be done. So that I feel like there's going to be something that you give up, not in a bad way, but just as you're going to lay this aside so you have time to do these other things. And I feel like what that is going to
what that is going to do in particular is you're going to give that to somebody that has the wherewithal to be able to take care of it and manage it well. And you won't have to worry about it as you move into the upgrade, which is going to be bigger and better for both of you. So tell me the idea about the counter and the dogs.
Okay, so while my husband's negotiating with the man about the price for the car, I'm looking around and I see chickens and birds, and then the two dogs came walking out of the right side and they went behind the counter. And then as they kept walking behind the counter, it became this big wide open field of green grass, and they just kept walking into this big wide open space.
And what kind of dogs were they?
They were the wire hair terriers.
Wire hair terriers.
Yeah, they're like little hunting dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense because I feel like the dogs represent you and your husband. Literally hunting, wide open field. There's a book out there on entrepreneurialism called Red Ocean, Blue Ocean. And it's about the red ocean is the shark infested waters, dog eat dog. Like if you decided to go into the cell phone business today, you're going to have to take competition from somebody else because everybody already has a cell phone. That's the red ocean. The blue ocean is if you discovered something like the cell phone before anybody else did, no competition. It's completely wide open. That's what the open field represents.
And the blue car.
Literally being behind the counter, I heard in counter, like you have an encounter together and you go behind the counter. Behind the counter is the behind the scenes. You think of a storefront. Behind the counter is where the cash register is. It's where the inventory is. It's where the rest of the shop is. There's the front of the shop and then there's behind the counter. So you guys have an encounter, which represents the business side of a store or a storefront. And so it becoming a business owner would be the encounter of going back behind the scene. And it's literally where the donuts are made, where the money is made, and realizing that when you get back there, it's not a restrictive small space like it is for a lot of storefronts. It's literally a wide open area that you can run free. God is going to give you ideas, invention, innovation, the opportunity to expand. He's going to bless and he's going to prosper you together. He's going to prosper your business, your husband's business, both of you as you work together. And that is going to be the upgrade because you're going to be able to do the whole entrepreneurial life together. And I feel like God is just going to do that in so many ways that it's going to exceed your expectations and bring fruitfulness to your family and your marriage.
I think it's interesting that your husband's the one who's doing the negotiating. You're there with him, but he's the one who's doing the negotiating, at least for this part of his new business. And what John said about the red ocean, blue ocean, what's the color of the car?
Yeah.
Deep blue ocean.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's a good dream, Megan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you sharing. Wow. Awesome.
That was a cool dream. I would hope he understands what his new calling is.
Yeah.
Give him an idea of what business he's going into.
Awesome. Well, we got a hard stop, so we got time for one more quick one. I know Vicky's been waiting for a while, so let's get Vicky on.
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, I got a short one.
Good.
Okay, I'm outside in a big stadium, so it's not like Mariner professional baseball size. It's more like a big old high school. And I'm in the back corner, like there's the exit, far back right. And so way up on the stage, they're honoring celebrities. And Harrison Ford comes out, but somehow at the same time, he's sitting next to me. And so the person they're honoring's name is Johnny Graves. And I'm like, who's Johnny Graves? And, I can't answer that question for myself, so I say it louder. Who's Johnny Graves? Thinking maybe somebody around me will answer. Nobody does. So I say it a third time. Who's Johnny Graves? And Harrison Ford says, Johnny Graves is Harrison Ford's father, who's famous for inventing an object that keeps horses' hooves from sliding in the snow.
Wow.
And that's it.
Yeah. I was looking up Johnny Graves really quick to see if there was anybody that popped up right away. And there's a lot of Johnny Graves, but nobody that seems to be of, like, Harrison Ford's father would come up pretty intently.
Yeah, it's definitely not his father.
Yeah. So here's what I heard. Neil, I'm sorry. Did you want to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So here's what I heard. It's the idea. It reminds me of the Oscars. And it's the idea of the dead burying the dead literally honoring the dead. So the idea of they're honoring graves, they're honoring something that is dead. And if you look at the ratings for the Oscars, they've gone down consistently until this year.
That's for sure.
We had something to talk about. I think a whole lot of people got sucked into the distraction. I believe it was a distraction. There's a whole lot of theories out there about how it was staged. I tell you what, if somebody insults your wife to the point that you're ready to disrupt something that's televised all over the world, you're not going to get up and wimpily open hand slap somebody in the face. You're going to lay them out cold if you have that amount of rage and emotion in you. So I think it's really interesting that there were some bills, particularly in the Senate and in the House, that were introduced in the last day or two that have to do particularly with this administration and the family that's currently in this administration and their financial dealings with, say, certain countries overseas. Nobody's hearing about this because it's Watch the Birdie. Somebody got slapped at an award show that nobody even knew was on. And so they're trying to, all of this distraction. And, you know, so many people are buying into it because they're commenting and they're putting on Facebook, and people got to put their, I'm pro-violence, well, I'm pro supporting your wife. And you've all been deceived because y'all buying into the distraction. And you're not looking at what's really going on. And this is why we say get out of the media and get into dreams. But so that's what it is it's the whole idea of the ego fest of celebrating the dead. And I heard when you said Johnny Graves, I heard the song from Back to the Future, Go Johnny Go. Yeah. And it's the whole idea of, it's just Hollywood trying to propagate their own egos and their own celebrity status by consistently giving, like there's no other industry that has anywhere close to the amount of awards that they do.
Yeah.
And so I think, there's other people that are like, they're desperate. There's other people that are like, she has a great smile. Harrison Ford's dad apparently is named John, which I think is pretty
John Fitzgerald Ford.
John Fitzgerald.
John.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And I heard the idea that you can't afford it. You know, the idea that if Harrison Ford is on the stage, how can he be sitting next to you? You can't afford it, which is the idea of you can't afford to focus on what they focus on. Because at the end of the day, what they focus on brings death and pride.
Yeah.
And what we need to focus on is we need to be very sober-minded and vigilant about what is happening in this day and age. And that's the times and seasons that we live in. And so God is letting you know. He's giving you a seat next to the person whose dad is allegedly part of the show. Yeah. And don't get caught up into the distraction, what's going on up there versus what's happening right next to you. And be vigilant and sober-minded. I think there's more, but I feel like that's kind of the 50,000-foot level.
That's how, kind of from the different side, the person they're honoring, if you look at who he is and what he's done, he's not a celebrity by any means. I mean, he's a guy who developed something for horse hooves. You know, he actually is a person who should be honored. You know, he's an inventor. He has created something useful for giving horses sure footing in snow or in ice, right? Keeping from sliding.
Yeah.
Keeping their, he's actually providing a service and an invention that's useful to society, in a working way, not in an entertaining way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I like what somebody said here, the idea of whitewashed tombs as far as graves, the whole idea of Hollywood. Yeah. So interesting dream. Yeah. If you're into a lot of entertainment and a lot of the stuff that Hollywood does, I feel like God is just giving you an encouragement to pull back a little.
I had been, but I had stopped. But that night I had watched like like kind of backslid and watched a few.
Busted. You got busted.
Like God saying, who is it?
God's like, let me give you a dream and let me tell you how fruitless that is. But
Yeah.
I feel like the idea is the idea of a trade or a transaction. If God is saying, let the dead bury their dead, it was because, you know, when he told somebody, come follow me, well, I have to go bury my father, let the dead bury their dead. It was the whole idea of the choice is to follow me or to stay in the back and work on things that are fruitless, that have no that have no life to them.
Wow.
So
Okay.
good dream. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks, Vicki.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Take care. Well, thank you guys again for another great edition of Live Dreams. We're going to start doing live dreams. We're going to continue to do Tuesdays, and not this week, but in weeks ahead. Be looking for some special events that we're going to do. By the way, if you're not subscribed to Dream Life Decoded at YouTube, whenever we do special events, we post up in the community page, which means everybody gets notified. What I'm thinking of doing is doing some more of the live dreams where anybody can log in. They don't have to pre-submit dreams. We're still going to do the pre-submitted ones for now, at least in the near future. But and another thing that we want to do is we want to get on and just answer dream questions. Those aren't probably going to be weeks in advance. They're not going to have an advance notice. So again, like, subscribe, because we just have a lot of questions and a lot of emails and a lot of little dreams that come in that may not necessarily fit into. A lot of times we do themes like nightmares or dreams of war, kids' dreams. And so somebody can go 3 weeks or a month and not have their dream interpreted. And so what we want to do is we want to provide a space for that. And we might even try a little bit different of a format. I like the format we did tonight, where we allowed people in the audience to have their comments seen because they were speaking directly into the dream. And so it's more of a community style. And we'll be bringing special guests on. I love doing live dreams with Neil, for example. So yeah, tune in. By the way, if you want to learn more about dream interpretation, there's dreamlifedecoded.com classes. There's a class that I put together specifically for people who want an intermediate level or a little bit advanced level about dream interpretation. If you don't know anything about dream interpretation, though, it's a good class for you because you start interpreting dreams right away. In the very second class, you're interpreting dreams on your own, and then you get the ability to check your answers against what I get in the dream course. So we're going to be starting up an all new, completely retooled spiritual intelligence mentorship coming in the probably the first week of May. So we'll have some information out about that. Thanks for being a part of our community. And we really love having you guys. And thanks for sharing your dreams with us. Have a good night.